This biodiversity crisis is looking at the rapid loss of bird species in North America. This crisis is not only affecting birds, but all taxa of animals and plants, including mammals, reptiles, fish, insects, plants, fungi, and especially reefs. Overall, the biodiversity crisis demonstrates a widespread decline across taxa, highlighting the interconnectedness of ecosystems and the urgent need for conservation efforts that protect the diversity of life. The biodiversity crisis and declines in various taxa are occurring globally, but certain regions and ecosystems are particularly affected. Most key areas include tropical areas, coral reefs, freshwater ecosystems, islands, and savannas are more heavily affected, and more specifically for this presentation, North America. What are the factors that are causing biodiversity loss, and how significant are each of these factors? Biodiversity loss is driven by various interrelated factors, each contributing significantly to the decline of species and ecosystems. Some key factors are habitat loss and degradation. This is the leading cause of biodiversity, which is urbanization, deforestation, agriculture, and infrastructure development are destroying habitats, which is leading to population declines and extinction. A significant change is also climate change. The altered temperatures and precipitation patterns affect species distribution, breeding, and survival. It causes habitat shifts and extreme weather events, stressing various ecosystems. Invasive species are non-native species, and they outcompete, prey on, or introduce diseases to the native species, which is disrupting the local ecosystems. They are a major threat, especially on islands and isolated habitats.
The effects of biodiversity loss and why they're bad for us. First, the effects on wildlife populations and communities. The decline in bird populations lead to the disruption of food webs. Birds are both predator and prey, meaning their loss can lead to imbalances which result in overpopulations in species like insects and invertebrates, and the loss of species whose main source of food were birds. Second, the effects of ecosystem function. The decrease in bird numbers impacts plant reproduction and the regeneration of forests, grasslands, etc. Birds play a crucial role in both pollination and seed dispersal, which maintain healthy plant populations. Third, the effect on ecosystem services. The loss of birds in agriculture-dependent regions will result in lower crop yields and higher prices for pest management. Fourth, the effects on humans. The decline of birds will result in pest outbreaks that will harm crops, as the diseases carried by insects or rodents are no longer being managed. Economic opportunities such as bird watching will decline. This will also negatively impact cultural practices tied to bird species.
Objectives of this study. What questions is the article trying to address? The article is trying to address how to slow the loss of bird species due to climate change, and how severe the loss of different bird species is. How did they go about collecting their data? They gathered information from bird monitoring databases across the US and Canada. They also used weather radars to track nocturnal migration passages.
In key finding 1, we see there was an overall net decline in the avifauna populations in the United States. The biome with the largest loss was the grassland biome at over 700 million breeding individuals and 31 species. That covered over 74% of all species that were monitored. All forest biomes had a net loss of over 1 billion individuals. The only biome to have a net gain was the wetland biome at 13%. The graph on the right shows all biomes in the United States and the percent of gain or loss since 1970.
The second key finding in this paper revolved around migratory patterns. A system of 148 weather radars called NEXRAD was used to continuously monitor nocturnal migration biomass across the United States. The data obtained shows that there is a general decline in nocturnal bird migration across the country, specifically in the eastern Atlantic and Mississippi flyways. The specific decline found was 13.6 plus or minus 9.8%. No similar trend could be established for the central or Pacific areas farther west. Potential factors affecting these findings could be the difference in migratory activity during the breeding and non-breeding seasons. According to the researchers, most nocturnally migrating birds fly north for breeding season, so their paths may be similar. There may also be more threats to migratory birds as they pass through certain areas. For example, there is likely more air pollution in urban areas versus rural ones. Additionally, there appears to be less data to establish a trend with in the West. The top figure to the right shows the biomass passage trend in the 148 specific sites monitored across the United States. Red indicates a decline in migration, and blue indicates an increase. A significant trend of 95% or more is shown via a closed circle, and anything less significant is shown via an open circle. There is largely a decline in migration across the country, with more neutral patterns in central areas and a slight increase in the far west of the country. Overall, there is a more significant trend in the eastern sites than in the western sites, regardless of increase or decline.
The third key finding is the patterns in change in abundance across the North American avifauna over the past half-century. The table is the net change in abundance across the North American avifauna from 1970 to 2017, and the graph shows the loss of 2.9 billion breeding birds across the continental avifauna since 1970. According to the article, specifically how to address the issue for the avifauna decline is to address climate change because it leads to habitat loss and other disturbances. For other taxa, according to the European Parliament, habitat loss is the primary issue. This is also somewhat seen on the graph where it shows urbanization as the main reason for the decline of the species. And some other general measures to note for the decline of species could be pollution, hunting, disease, and other factors as shown on the pie chart.